Before getting started, a quick warning that this video will contain spoilers up to the end of episode 7. Debbie wakes up realizing that the events of the previous day were not a dream, and Amber is still pissed off at Mark as William drives them all home. Meanwhile, Eve gets ready for another day of saving the world. Debbie tries to get her husband to explain himself for murdering the Guardians of the Globe. Nolan tries to tell Debbie that all she has to do is trust him, but she's having none of that, telling him to leave. Nolan assures Debbie that he'll be back, then makes a dramatic exit through the roof. Debbie tries to warn Mark with a phone call, but after being sent to voicemail, she's snuck up on by special forces of the GDA, who are there to escort her to a safe location. William drops Amber off home and Mark follows after, trying to make amends. It doesn't go well. He flies up to her room in his Invincible outfit for the big reveal. Amber apparently already knew that Mark was a superhero, and she's still mad at him because it doesn't change the fact that he was lying to her about it the whole time. Amber dumps Mark, telling him to take a hike. Monster Girl returns from her recovery to find a surprise party welcoming her back at the Guardians HQ. Rex filled all the milk cartons with beer, and it's also revealed that Black Samson got his powers back during his recovery from the Battle Beast fight. Robot is speaking with Monster Girl when he starts to have a mini breakdown. He then goes on to explain it was just a minor malfunction that he will soon have solved permanently. We see a normal-looking man drive a truck up to the secret hideout of the Mauler Twins. The man turns out to be nothing more than a hologram, as the true driver of the truck is revealed to be Robot, the real Robot. The horribly disfigured person in the tube has been controlling and acting the part of superhero through his advanced drones this entire time. Phase 1 of his plans is to work with the Mauler Twins to get his consciousness transferred to a clone of Rex's body. Robot quickly identifies multiple failsafes that the twins installed, including time-released mycotoxin sacs, a cortical override, and 8 synaptic transceivers. Robot politely asks the twins to remove the implanted devices and install one of his own upgrades. He assures the twins that they will be given schematics to a device that can bend all but the strongest of willed individuals, basically advanced mind control tech. As a sign of trust, the real Robot disintegrates his only robot body, leaving himself entirely at the mercy of the Mauler Twins. This seems to be enough to win the twins over, and they comply with Robot's requests. William and Mark are talking about the previous day. William accuses Mark for not helping find Rick sooner. Meanwhile, Mark is beating himself up over his life, which he feels is quickly falling apart. William gives Mark a reality check, telling him to quit sulking and suggesting the only part he really messed up was with Amber. Mark doesn't appreciate the advice and heads off to find a more sympathetic listener. Debbie arrives with Donald at the GDA headquarters. Cecil reveals to Debbie that he knew about Nolan's crimes the entire time, earning a slap to the face for his honesty. Showing a fair bit of bravery, he goes on to reveal more truths, telling Debbie that the GDA is orchestrating a plan to kill Nolan, and that Mark is to be the spearhead of the operation, as Cecil believes Mark is the only one capable of such a task. We get a scene of Omni-man lamely explaining to Mark how he had to kill the Guardians of the Globe. It turns out to be nothing more than a practice pitch, as Omni-man is talking into the wind atop Mount Everest in preparation for the real deal. The Mauler Twins have finished prepping the clone for Robot's transfer. We learn that Robot is doing this all to be closer to Monster Girl, and the twins extricate him from his life-supporting tank. The twins feel obligated to inform Robot that the procedure isn't a transfer, it only creates a copy of his mind. Robot understands this and is completely fine with it. We get a first-person perspective of the process as the new Robot awakens, at first seeing his original mangled hands, but eventually blinking into view the normal hands of his cloned body. After some complications and MacGyvering of the cloning contraption, the procedure is a success, though it seems to be at the cost of the original Robot's life. The new Robot remarks at the sense of continuity between his old and new self. The Mauler Twins explain that such an experience was intentionally built into the cloning process, and that it is to ensure that neither of them would know which is the clone and which is the original. Apparently, it never ends well. The conversation is interrupted by the coughing rasps of the original Robot. After a short exchange of reassurances, the new Robot removes the mask that was keeping the original alive, mercifully bringing his suffering to an end. The new robot upholds his side of the bargain, handing over the schematics for the control device, but as it turns out, he also planned to bring the twins back to jail right after. The upgrade that Robot had the twins install in his new body was a neural uplink, preserving Robot's telemetric control over his drones, and he summons 2 of them to fight the twins. However, the Mauler Twins are able to bring down the opposing duo with relative ease. So it was that Robot was forced to reveal his hidden ace, as the truck he rode in on was a literal transformer rearranging itself into a mechanical Goliath. Omni-Man returns home to find his son and Debbie. Instead, he only finds one of the camouflaged GDA agents. The realization that Cecil had a team of specialists waiting at his home did not have a calming effect on Omni-Man. Omni-Man demonstrated his lack of calmness by crushing the agent's skull into the floor, killing him instantly. Quickly looking around, Omni-Man spots 2 more of the invisible agents and they open fire on him. The munitions stocked by the GDA are utterly ineffective against Omni-Man as he grabs the rifle of a nearby foe and rams it through his invisible head. Omni-Man pushes another agent into the kitchen counter, severing him in 2. With a single motion, the rampaging super slams with the force of a maglev train into the body of one of the only remaining agents, leaving nothing behind but minced meat. He turns his gaze toward the only agent left, who suddenly realizes the precariousness of their predicament. Omni-Man doesn't take any prisoners though, sending the lone agent sailing from the house with what has to be the worst case of scoliosis imaginable. Her condition proves to be fatal, but not before she tips off Omni-Man to the GDA surveillance team stationed in the house across the street. Bursting in, Omni-Man expresses his disdain for Donald. However, Donald is no slouch and manages to distract Omni-Man long enough for the other GDA employees to escape, but no longer than that. As Donald lunges for a nearby set of controls, Omni-Man pounces, seizing Donald by the spine. Donald utters a final statement, "It's been an honor, sir," then slams his fist down on a big, round, albeit not red, button. Omni-Man has only a moment to contemplate who it is that Donald was speaking to before a miniaturized payload detonates, engulfing the entire house in an explosive blast. Cecil and Debbie witness the dramatic conclusion to the encounter from a remote location. Cecil spares some choice words for his fallen comrade, and Debbie grapples with the gravity of the situation. Cecil was hoping to knock out Omni-Man for a few hours with a blast. It turns out not to have hurt him at all, and he takes off in search of Mark. We find out that Mark was heading over to see Eve, and the 2 head off to have a chat. Back at the Mauler Twins hideout, we see the hulking robot pursuing the blue twins, firing off a series of green lasers from its arm-mounted blasters. You'd think the twins were related to Angus MacGyver himself, as they jury-rigged together a lethal weapon out of components salvaged from various contraptions in their base. One of the twins takes aim at the vulnerable cloned body of Robot and fires. Robot reacted quickly, however, maneuvering an arm from his sizable drone to intercept the threat. Just when Robot backs the 2 clones into a corner, he's interrupted by an apocalypse-level priority, calling him back to Guardians HQ. William is heading to Mark's house when Omni-Man lands directly in his path. Omni-Man seems pretty pissed off and begins questioning William as to Mark's whereabouts. William is able to ramble off that Mark went to see Eve, and Omni-Man takes off. Back at Guardians HQ, Cecil tells the team to sit tight but doesn't explain why. Samson asks if Robot can figure out what it is they're being kept in the dark about. However, Robot is unresponsive. Demonstrating exemplary timing, the new Robot reveals himself, much to the shock of Rex. He explains that he was behind the robot they all knew, and that his real name is Rudolph Connors. Cecil continues to track Mark and Omni-Man's positions, throwing together a slapdash plan to buy some time. Eve offers Mark condolences for the dumping he suffered at the hands of Amber. However, she thinks he was a bit naive for not seeing it coming. Omni-Man cuts a quick pace across the landscape as a faint blue ray of light appears and then gradually intensifies all around him. A wave of devastation washes over Omni-Man as the nearby wilderness is subjected to catastrophe. It turns out that the GDA has an enormous laser-equipped satellite in low orbit, and they used it to try and put Omni-Man down for good. A practically pristine Omni-Man launches from the point of impact, soaring skyward on a direct path for the satellite. Cecil orders a second shot at the unstoppable force, and Omni-Man meets it head-on, taking the full brunt of the attack. In a matter of seconds, he reduces the $400 billion investment down to a plummeting piece of debris, suffering only a minor nosebleed in the process. It's at this point that Cecil decides to speak with Omni-Man directly. Through his explanation to the Guardians, it's revealed that Rudolph copied himself into an adolescent clone of Rex, all for Monster Girl. He was trapped like her, and now that he's free, he wants to help free Monster Girl from the curse of a body that gets younger with every use of her power. Rudolph isn't quite able to sell his team on the nobility of his hidden agenda, especially not Rex. However, before the unwitting clone donor is able to continue his tirade, he is interrupted by Black Samson. Samson was able to tap into GDA feeds, bringing up the footage of Omni-Man destroying the satellite weapon on the big screen for everyone to see. This particular day has just gone from unbelievable to unfathomable. Eve sees the far-off flash of light from Omni-Man's recent fight with a ridiculous amount of taxpayers' money. Mark says it isn't his problem anymore, as he wants to quit being a hero. Eve isn't so deterred, rushing off to help however she can, telling Mark he'll regret it if he does nothing when he could be saving lives. Omni-Man resumes his flight only to take a blast from Cecil holding an advanced-looking rifle. Cecil knew he wouldn't be able to hurt Omni-Man but still wanted to get his attention. To Cecil's surprise, Omni-Man immediately tries to murder him. However, Cecil is quicker on the draw, using his teleportation device to evade the flying super's grasp. Cecil continues teleporting around, attempting to play at Omni-Man's emotional side in an effort to glean an explanation for his actions. He only manages to further anger the turned hero. Cecil teleports back to GDA headquarters just as 3 drop pods crash all around Omni-Man. A trio of Reanimen burst forth from the pods, taking Omni-Man by surprise and punching his skull into the ground with such significant force that it begins to crack and crumble all around. Cecil explains to Debbie that D.A. Sinclair was contracted to put his tech to work on the cadavers of fallen GDA agents. The cyborg soldiers prove to be quite the formidable force against Omni-Man, but in the end it isn't enough. Omni-Man dislocates the head of 2 Reanimen and tears the third in half. This failed attempt is followed up by Cecil ordering in what he calls his Hail Mary to deal with Omni-Man. Meanwhile, we see the Mauler Twins reattaching the Immortal's head to his body as they prepare to take control of his mind once he's brought back to life. Having dealt with Cecil's distractions, Omni-Man returns to his mission of finding his son. That is until the biggest distraction yet blinks into existence directly in front of Omni-Man's path. Omni-Man mocks Cecil's attempts to use a kaiju that he's already defeated against him. Cecil quips back that they removed the kaiju's pain center and juiced it up with every drug, enhancement, and upgrade they had, making for a far more even matchup. Omni-Man tries to flee the scene, but the enraged kaiju makes it clear that he won't let Omni-Man escape without a fight. Around this time, 2 news helicopters arrive on the scene. The Guardians spectate the fight and it appears that Omni-Man is losing. The Guardians want to help fight the kaiju, only to be informed by Cecil that if things go south, they will need to help in taking down Omni-Man. Rex puts 2 and 2 together and suggests that Omni-Man is what happened to the last Guardians of the Globe team. Cecil tries to contact Mark through Eve's phone, but the 2 young heroes arrive to see Omni-Man fighting with the monster. Mark, or rather Invincible, darts in to save his dad, knocking a tooth loose from the monster's maw. As father and son trade blows with the enormous beast, Cecil orders Eve not to help or interfere. When the kaiju snatches up Mark, Debbie implores Cecil to call off the monster before it kills her son. Cecil explains that he doesn't know whose side Mark is on, and he can't call off what might be the only way to stop both of the Viltrumite supers. Debbie comments that such a cold and calculating demeanor is why she hates Cecil, and Cecil admits that he hates himself for the very same reason. Mind-controlling Caller in place, the Mauler Twins try to determine why the Immortal refuses to rise from the dead. One of the twins begins wailing on his chest, deciding it's the best way to proceed, not because he thinks it will work, but because it feels good. Surprisingly, it's effective, and the Immortal's life begins to flash before his eyes as he is beaten back to life. We learn that he was a tribal warrior who found a mysterious well of power, one that gave him his powers, essentially making him immortal. We see other snippets of his life, one where he's a medieval knight, as well as when he was Abraham Lincoln, before finally setting on his modern superhero title of the Immortal. The last thing he remembered was the sight of Omni-man's hand as it was brought down for decapitation. With that final memory, the Immortal jolts back to the land of the living, demanding to know where Omni-man is. The Mauler Twins try to take control with the collar device from Robot, however, the power of blinding rage is stronger and the Immortal tears the device apart. Seeing the crazy in his eyes, the twins back off, arms raised in a clear gesture of surrender, and the Immortal takes off in search of his quarry. Cutting back to the fight with Hail Mary, we see that Invincible and Omni-Man make a pretty good team. They pull off multiple coordinated maneuvers, momentarily knocking the monster to the ground. A moment of distraction allows the kaiju to recover, delivering powerful blows to both of the supers. At the same moment, the Immortal flies onto the scene, he calls out and slams Omni-Man into the ground, leaving Invincible to fend for himself against the monster. Omni-Man launches the once dead hero skyward and follows in pursuit, only to be propelled back towards the earth by the Immortal's fists. Around that time, a nearby news helicopter spots the two struggling and broadcasts the fight for the entire world to see. Mark also gets a front row tentacle to witness the fight as it unfolds. More than anything, it seems that Omni-Man is mainly trying to fend off the Immortal so that he can reach and help out his son. The Immortal is dogged in his pursuit though, never giving Omni-Man a moment's break. Invincible, in a stroke of brilliance, draws the monster directly into the path of an electrical power line, shocking and presumably incapacitating the towering threat. This frees him up to witness the conclusion of his father and the Immortals rematch. Once again, the Immortal leaves himself open when he rears back for a haymaker, and Omni-Man capitalizes, plunging his fist through the Immortal's torso. Spectators from around the world watch in shocked silence at the gruesome turn of events taking place on screen. In a final act of desperation, the Immortal grabs Omni-Man on each side of his face and begins to gouge out the Viltrumite's eyes. Omni-Man's will and ostensibly muscles proved to be stronger as he used his free arm to completely sever the greater half of the Immortal's body from the lesser and shook the pain out of his bloodshot eyes. Watching the two falling halves of the former guardian of the globe, Invincible is smart enough to realize that something is definitely off. Omni-Man, probably thinking this to be the worst possible circumstances under which to broach the heavy subject, tells his son that they need to talk. And there are no post-credit scenes here. That is the end of this episode. There's only one more episode in season 1 and I have my guess as to what will happen. So a lot happened in this episode and I really enjoyed it. There were some really tropey bits with Nolan giving his pretend speech to Mark on the top of Mount Everest and other similar scenes. I'm not a big fan of how the relationship stuff is being handled and that's all I'll say about that. However, I like how Cecil engages with Nolan in this episode and all of the different action scenes were extremely well done. So I want to give this either a 9 or 10 out of 10. I think this is one of the best episodes in the season overall. Let me know what you think of this episode and video in the comments below. If you want to be notified for videos on future episodes, be sure to subscribe. You're also helping me feed my cat, her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day. If you're here today, have a great Friday and a great weekend. And as always, thanks for watching.